The name of this study is Hyperactivity and Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, Impairing Deficit or Compensatory Behavior. ADHD is the most diagnosed mental disorder in children. It entails them having a deficit or trouble paying attention, as well as hyperactivity, which just means an increase in the physical activity of the child. There are several different assumptions that are often made in society by children about children with ADHD. One is that they're often generalized as presenting with aggression, opposition, and disruptive behaviors, and oftentimes, especially in schools, these behaviors are prohibited, especially since they're believed to be detrimental to the child's learning as well as the learning of their peers. The study discusses several different models or explanations for these types of behaviors in children with ADHD. The first is inhibition, which just means that the behavior is detrimental to the functioning activities of the child. It's something they're unable to control. The second is a deficit model, which discusses ADHD as a result of cognitive impairments. And the third is functional, where functional model in which increased activity helps cognitions is actually a compensatory behavior. This study examined the relationship between gross motor activity or physical activity as well as working memory performance and attention. Working memory performance was used as an example of brain functioning and a mode of learning for the child. It was also hypothesized that children with ADHD would have increased gross motor activity and lower attentive behavior in comparison to typically developed children, and the results would be examined in the context of the three models mentioned. In terms of the sample, there were 52 boys ages 2 through 12 of mixed ethnicity. 29 of them significantly met criteria for ADHD through self, parental, and teacher reports, and 23 met criteria as typically developed children through the same reports that revealed them as having normal developmental history, and no evidence of mental disorder. The working memory test entailed a task of 4 difficulty levels and 4 tests throughout 4 testing sessions. The 4 difficulty tasks were repeated in 4 different testing sessions. It entailed sorting numbers and putting them in order while also distinguishing a letter from the series. And then behavior measurements were recorded and objectively measured. So those behaviors included activity level and attentive behavior. Activity level included a number of different things, including foot movement, moving out of their chair, and moving the chair itself. The hypothesis was supported that children with ADHD had increased activity level and lower attention, as is shown in many research studies today. Attention was not found to be affected by activity level at all, which supports that relationship. The functional model was also supported in the results. Children with ADHD had a significant success with the working memory activity as their physical activity increased. Initially in the study, there was a difference in the working memory performance, with the typically developed children doing better than the children with ADHD. This difference lessened greatly with an increased activity in the ADHD children. Although their performance wasn't considered normal or what would be average, they still did lessen this difference and did much better. Limitations of the study include the small sample size of just boys fitting very specific criteria at very extreme ends of the spectrum. Also, the working memory task. Working memory is only one aspect of brain functioning and that way of learning that could be impaired in children with ADHD. It's also not a causal relationship in the results because the study is not experimental, though it does show a positive relationship between increased activity and working memory performance in children with ADHD. Also, it's difficult to define what exactly is hyperactive and what would be considered abnormal. Implications of the study, just further research in these areas of limitation and expanding the study, and also in schools, implicating devices to facilitate the need and movement of ADHD children, using things such as activity balls and stationary bikes, rather than inhibiting these behaviors that actually might be helping them.